Hey everyone, Chris here. I am recording this on Tuesday, March 3rd. Can't believe we're in March already. Felt like February was just a very extended January. So, uh, yeah, thanks for being with me here today. Ooh, off to a great start here. Um, I'm still recovering a bit from the cold I had last week, so bear with me. My voice is kind of going in and out a bit. But today we're going to be going over logic models. This is week 7. Um, Today's a little bit of a lighter lecture day, and so I wanted to take the latter half to give you some examples of some things that I am researching to just give you a sense of how I search for resources for clients. And then I just wanted to do a reminder. Some of you have had me before, I know, but just some tips for success. So yeah, let's dive in. Maybe. There we go. Check-in today, I wanted to offer this kind of Buddhist idea, um, which is pretty simple. It's this concept of chop wood, carry water. So when you are feeling super overwhelmed or um, when you don't know what to do, I know everything that's happening in the world right now is pretty terrifying. And we don't know exactly what all is going to happen next. We don't know what the ramifications are, how this is going to affect us here in the States, how it's impacting people worldwide. Again, don't care where you are on the political spectrum. We're all kind of in this place of not knowing what's coming, and that can be scary. Um, in those moments, what we do is we chop wood and carry water. So, not literally, I'm not asking you to go find a forest and like deforest or anything, but we do the daily tasks that are in front of us to do. We do the things that we like the little things that we need to do to continue to function, right? So chopping wood might be doing the dishes. Carrying water might just be something as simple as hydrating yourself, or running the vacuum cleaner, or brushing your teeth. Whatever your chop wood, carry water is, focus on the things that you can control and that you have power over or impact, like your environment. You have certain ways of controlling your environment or impacting your environment. Um, we do the things we can do until we can't do them, you know? Um, and a lot of times that's easier said than done. So I acknowledge that as well. But wanted to offer that piece of um, potentially wisdom. I don't know. If it works for you, great. If not, might work for somebody else. But yeah, I like to offer different kinds of things in the check-in just to give y'all different approaches. This also would work in a group or a team, like, or at an organization, like what are the things that we have control over, right? What are the things that we can focus on and that we can impact now? I think this is also a good idea to keep in mind as you are putting together your organizational change plan proposal. We want the proposal to be something that you could actually do in your position as it stands right now. So not, you going above and beyond necessarily, but something that you can do because there's always something that we can do to positively impact the environment around us and the people around us, our clients, our community, little ways that we can approach things differently, um, and show up differently and make sure people feel welcomed and seen and heard. So keeping that in mind too, this idea of like chop wood, carry water, like what is actually feasible, what is doable, what is within your realm of ability, within your organization and your role in your organization right now. Okay. So some general reminders, just do this week's readings and resources. You've got your weekly activities in the minute paper this week. I did not realize how the assignment was put together. And I have to go back because the organization change plan proposal is okay. I was able to finagle that, but The presentation that y'all are going to be doing later this semester, so that's the one that's due in May, early May. That one is a bit wonky, and I just need to, because we are accredited a certain way, I need to go back in and like make sure it makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense to me, it's certainly not going to make sense to you. So bear with me on that. I'm going to be doing a fourth optional synchronous Zoom for this assignment specifically. The rest of the assignments have already been talked about, like with the recording and everything. So yeah, check those out. I will let you know as soon as I have a date selected. It'll probably be in April. I'm not gonna like y'all have enough going on in March. So I'll be looking at April for that. Unless you want it sooner, just let me know. Upcoming assignments, obviously your organization change plan part one is due. So this is the proposal. I think it's like 2 to 3 pages. Um, that's due Monday, March 9th. And let me know if you need some wiggle room on that. Again, just keep me posted. I think everybody except I think there are 3 students who have not turned in their organization assessment yet. So please get those to me as soon as you can. But yeah, I'm flexible as long as you're in communication with me. The individual meeting with me is due Sunday, March 22nd. I want y'all to have that full spring break week off. So if you haven't signed up for your individual meeting with me, drop into my Calendly link. I continue to update that every Sunday or Monday for that week, just so that you have some additional times that I'm available. And again, that's super quick, super simple, can be as short as 5 minutes. Just want to pop in and say, hey, check in with you about how the semester's going, answer any questions or concerns you might have, and get some feedback from you about what's going well as well. Whew. Most of you have already done that, so thank you for that. It's been a pleasure getting to know everybody and checking in with those of you I've met before from last semester. Your key leader interview is due Monday, April 13th. This can be turned in early. I've already done this recording, so check that one out if you need to. But yeah, the key leader interview, again, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. For the organization change plan, like proposal, it's actually, that's something you can kind of do in tandem with it. I know that's due March 9th. Again, if you need wiggle room, let me know. But you could always do the leader interview before the proposal, like the plan, because part of it is like having already talked about your ideas with like your supervisor or something, just to get some feedback from them. The reason the proposal is due, like the plan, is due early is so that I can give you a heads up, yay or nay, to move forward with it and give you any feedback I might have before you actually kind of, you don't implement the actual plan unless you want to. It's more so just about, you know, making sure it's feasible. It's got to be like something that you could potentially actually do. Some more reminders, just again, please check your announcements regularly. There is, I think there's like a page in the one of the modules about how to set up your announcements so that you get an email when you get an announcement, or so that you're alerted. I'm also working on grading your organization assessment assignments this week. I'll be dropping those grades in throughout the week and this coming weekend at the latest. I was trying to get y'all that feedback sooner. I might just, I might just push back the, yeah, I think I'm gonna do that now that I'm thinking about it, because I wanted y'all to have the feedback from me before your paper was due, like the whatchamacallit, the proposal. So I'm gonna push it back to be due on the 16th. Okay. So that you have some time to process the feedback I'm able to get to you. Okay. Um, cool. I'll make an announcement about that too. Actually, let me write that down so I don't forget. Org plan move due date. I always take notes because I will forget otherwise. March 16th. Cool. So, this week, since again it's a little lighter, I wanted to revisit our Gen AI in the classroom. Thank you all so much for participating in that. I know that was a couple weeks ago now. Talk about logic models, giving you a heads up that most of you will return to logic models as part of your capstone or in other coursework or community work. So, just know you might want to save this presentation somewhere. I wanted to do some research with you on the computer so that you can see how I approach researching resources for clients, because I think it might be helpful for y'all to see kind of how I think about it and approach, trying to think outside the box for resources. I just wanted to also give you some general tips. And then some recommendations of things you can be doing now for success after school, just for getting the most out of your time in the grad program and the resources that you are given, like in the program itself. For those of you who've had me before, that last portion will be kind of repetitive, but it'll be fairly quick. Okay. So from our group discussion, where y'all edited that page a couple weeks back, uh, using generative AI in the classroom, y'all provided the feedback that the benefits are for supporting research, writing, formatting, and organization, um, comprehension, like to double check your comprehension and to simplify more complex ideas, and convenience. Yeah, makes sense. What I did was I kind of merged all of your thoughts into main points. So this can kind of be our agreement moving forward of how we're going to be utilizing AI. Um, you'll see that more on the next slide, but so some of the drawbacks of use of generative AI is the possibility of oversimplification and loss of nuance, which, we're working with people, we're working with communities. A lot of nuance goes into the work that we do. I think social work just kind of exists in shades of gray. Accuracy and trustworthiness issues, very much so. I think somebody mentioned in this course at one point that finding articles and resources for a paper that they had written last semester, it can be helpful, but I just want to double and triple check that y'all make sure to find those papers and make sure that those are actually that they exist first and foremost, and also that the papers that are mentioned by AI are actually saying uh, what they say that they're saying, what generative AI is saying that they're saying. Because my partner actually is in grad school right now and was trying to find some resources and papers, but was trying to get really specific with this one topic that they were researching. And it got to the point where the generative AI started just making up papers and resources. Like there was just no record of these papers or these authors existing. So just be careful around that. It's not a bad thing to like utilize it and to kind of dive into that realm, but just make sure you're double and triple checking. Misinterpretation of prompts. So if you ask a question because it doesn't have that nuance or it oversimplifies things at times, like it can misinterpret what you're asking for and then provide false information or irrelevant information or outdated information. Um, there's definitely also a risk of us becoming over reliant on it. I don't know how many of you were born and grew up before the internet and then after the internet, like, had time before and after. But as an elder millennial, I remember that there was a time before the internet and, we were able to survive then. um, so it also puts into perspective that AI and the internet and technology in the way it exists now could go away at any point in time too. It's not like a constant, I think, in the way that folks who grew up with social media, with the internet, with iPhones and apps and all of that, I think it probably feels more like it's part of society and the world in a way that could never go away. Um, but yeah, if we become over reliant on generative AI, it can end up taking over some of our critical thinking and just our way of approaching problems. And that's one of the best things about being a social worker is like those things. um, the environmental impact is definitely something we need to consider. The ethical and regulatory gaps, which dip into privacy and compliance issues. Um, I think there was a documentary I watched at one point. I can't remember the specific one, but it was talking about how if the app is free or the website is free, then you are what is being sold, right? Like your data being collected is what is being sold. Like that is where the money is being made, or you are being advertised to, and so you are being sold to. Like you are the product if you are utilizing a free service. And so just having an awareness around this if you are researching something for yourself or your family, but also for clients that, you know, it could come up, you know, as something with privacy and compliance in particular. HIPAA is really particular about what can and can't be utilized, you know, and how we utilize things. So the fact that we don't have legislation on whether or not AI can be used as therapists, like instead of social workers or instead of psychologists. They're not letting AI prescribe people anything, but they're letting AI, you know, apps be generated to essentially kind of replace therapy, which is not ideal. Because it can't do that. Data integrity and ownership concerns, yep, that's a big piece too. Like if we're using AI to generate notes for meetings, like for an organization, if you're in a like a project manager role or what have you. You know, we talked about a recorder being so important in I think it was our last lecture. That position can't be replaced by AI because you know, it's just it's not it's not a again, you don't know if that data is going into the pool of learning data, right? If there's any privacy concerns, those kinds of things, like it just, who owns that information from that meeting then, you know? Um, the social and interpersonal effects of, you know, engaging people and building social skills. Like, I think a lot of us are seeing younger folks who are um, having difficulty with social anxiety, but also not knowing how to act in public because, like, COVID, you know, we were all stuck at home and there were kids that missed out on a couple of years of being in classroom with other students and figuring out how to navigate that interpersonal stuff and just like, you know, being uncomfortable and knowing that the world's not going to end if you like embarrass yourself in front of somebody or if you accidentally say something that hurts somebody else, right? Um, and there's also just this sense of, you know, general distrust or moral obligations to utilizing generative AI, which, yeah, of course, that's a drawback. So, what does that mean for us in our classroom? Again, I kind of summarized what y'all had stated in our group editing page a couple weeks back. We want to use it responsibly. This is kind of like our agreement going forward, right? So we want to be transparent and honest about when and how AI is utilized. So again, in your assignments here, if you use AI, okay, cool. Make sure you mention it. I'm gonna drop a couple of resources for you in the following couple pages for how to do that. APA does have, like APA 7th edition does have a way of citing AI and generative AI platforms. Um, Using AI as an assistant, not a replacement. So you are you. AI cannot replace you. And most importantly, it can't do your critical thinking for you or complete your assignments for you. I think that's kind of, you know, fair to say, right? Learning support, so simplifying or clarifying concepts, because Lord knows I ramble. Uh, and a lot of this stuff can feel very vague. I do try to give specific examples wherever I can, but I don't always have one readily available. So, you know, if you want to ask generative AI for an example of a logic model, for example, we'll be talking about that stuff today. You can do that. Um, General overview before fact checking. So again, you know, um, if you're going over a concept or something, you might want to get the high level details before, diving in and knowing where to go next for resources, right? Identifying factual resources and where to locate them. Again, make sure that AI didn't just make it up because AI is like the ultimate people pleaser. So it will just straight up make up stuff to appease you um, as a consumer. Um, and really, that is what this is. This is not like, it's not really even an assistant. It is like the most people-pleasing assistant ever to the point where it will just make stuff up. And then, but there's no accountability in that, right? Because a person, you could talk to them and be like, hey, please don't do that. Like, I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to be honest with me. Like, if this resource doesn't exist, that's okay. We can deal with that. What I can't deal with is, making stuff up or lying, you know? Um, we can't really do that with AI. We can utilize generative AI in research and writing assistance. So summarizing lengthy articles or readings, you can dump like the readings from this course, even if you want to, you can dump them into whatever AI platform you want to and just be like, hey, can you summarize this article in plain language? Or, can you give me the highlights here? If you're not able to take the time to really dive into the reading that week, right? Or if there's a particularly long reading in this class or other classes, right? Um, Highlighting redundancy in your own writing. So um, we don't tend to notice our own habits in our writing style, in our presentation style, right? So if you drop in your drafts of your paper and stuff and be like, hey, are there any redundancies in my paper? Or do I have any like common tendencies that I can work on? Or do I use the same words over and over again? Like, who knows, right? It can help with formatting citations. I've already mentioned too that Zotero can help with that. And it can handle like tedious or time-consuming tasks potentially if you know how to utilize it. Idea development. We can use AI as kind of a sounding board, like a starting point for brainstorming. If we do that, though, we want to fact check all the content before using it, right? And that's part of the reason why we also have to cite AI in whatever we're using, because that way, like, especially including the prompt you're using and what specific version you're using of AI. Sorry, there's a tag in my shirt that is really bothering me. Um, then we can go back and try to, if we find that there's an issue, right, or that there is a gap between what is being presented by the AI, we can recreate it, right? So science, uh, personal preferences and boundaries. So like you don't have to utilize AI in this course. It might make your life a little bit easier in this course or other courses if you dip your toe in and see what works for you and what doesn't. Not all of us have that capacity right now, and that's totally groovy. Like that's okay too. Uh, Again, we want it to support your learning. We don't want it to replace your engagement with this course, with the materials, with the ideas, with the concepts. And that's in particular why, we've got the weekly activities and all of that, but it's also why you've got your assignments. It's not about getting it right. It's about showing that you are capable of critically thinking about the content and applying it in a way that makes sense to you and is usable to you in your life, and in your practice, but then also that like that you're understanding, like that you're picking up what I'm laying down, right? Because AI can't do that for you. um, so here are some websites with examples. These are resources on how to cite AI tools within APA 7th edition. Um, with this in particular, I wanted to give a couple websites and a couple of YouTube resources. I did not want to try to do, like, there's no way there was going to be a podcast for that. So there's that. And then I also wanted to mention that failure to cite AI use in your work is unethical. Um, it's kind of icky. You again always want to check facts and any resources or papers that AI is telling you exist and that it's saying they say these things or that the paper proves this point. You always want to cite use of AI in your work. I would rather you get it wrong in how you mention it or bring it up, and then we can figure it out. Because again, this is developing as we're like in class together, as we're learning this stuff together. So this is not perfect. I don't know how to cite AI in my stuff. Um, I'm not in school right now, but like we're still figuring this out, like the regulations about it, the best practices. It's kind of cool. And so there's a way of avoiding it all together and being afraid of it, but then there's also being okay with trying and getting it wrong. Um, and then figuring it out together, right? Because there's really no right way to do it right now. The only wrong way to do it is to just not mention it when you do use it, you know? Never be afraid to ask questions. If you have not accessed the Aurora Campus Library, um, either in person or virtually, I, like every major paper that I had for every one of my classes, I made sure that I scheduled a virtual session because I was hybrid and I was fully asynchronous, I think the full semester. Um, but yeah, it's or the first semester, sorry. You can do this kind of stuff like online. You can ask them for help. Know what your resources are and know how to utilize them. That way, when you do need them, they're right there. You don't have to figure it out on top of being super stressed out, if that makes sense. More AI thoughts for grad school. I think I've mentioned this resource to a few folks. There is an AI podcast generator. So you can definitely dump like a PDF or like an essay or something, whatever your readings are for school. Like you can dump those into ChatGPT and ask for summaries. But you can also, there's this podcast generator where you can dump that in and be like, hey, can you give me like a 30-minute podcast about this stuff? It's not great, but it turns the written word into spoken so that you can do other stuff. I have ADHD personally, and so if I have a video with audio that helps me, um, just reading can be really hard for me to comprehend because I get distracted. Um, and so, I try to give you as many resources as possible. Here are a couple of videos that are shorter, um, just detailing how people are utilizing AI, just to give you some examples of how they're using them in grad school. Because I'm not the expert by any means. I'm quite terrified of ChatGPT and like all of the things myself, but I'm also intrigued because this is like weird and new and we get to be a part of the conversation, and how cool is that? Because social media was so new and now it's like, whoa, this is like social media part two, but like worse and like bigger with bigger ramifications. So yeah, I'm leaning into that discomfort because I want to understand enough to be able to have conversations about it. So let's dive into logic models. Mahaha. And I was able to use a lot of the same pictures for this lecture, so bear with me here. Uh, let's see here. 1 second. Okay, sorry. I had a client that texted me and I got very confused for a second because they're like, what are we doing? Um, and I have another client who is in crisis, and so I was just a bit worried about that client, but it is not that. Okay. Logic models. So what's a logic model? It's a picture or a snapshot of how an effort or initiative works. Um, Encapsulated within a logic model is kind of the explanation, the why around why this strategy helps to work towards resolving the problem or issue identified, or like what it's working towards, you know. It's an explicit visual statement about what specific activities will bring about change and the results that are expected. So this is not like, this is, I guess you could say it's like kind of predictive, but the thing is like you change it when things go sideways, right? Like this is what you expect. It's not necessarily how things end up playing out. Um, it provides a common language and a point of reference to ensure that all parties involved are moving in the same direction. So again, just like how we're talking about like imagine and prepare, the framework, like the logic model is there so that if and when you get stuck, or if you're like, wait, what are we doing again? What? Because we all have those moments, right? It allows you to go back and reference it pretty easily, to the point where if you're sitting in front of a client or a community member, you can like refer to it pretty easily and come back and be like, okay, so here's where we're at, you know? You want to use a logic model during planning. Ooh, apologies. Planning, like planning sessions. Implementation. So when you're at the start of what you've decided to do to move forward, if you are doing like staff and stakeholder orientations, so if you've ever started a new job and they have you sit down and do an orientation, a logic model might make sense for that. Um, Especially if you're doing like a time sensitive or like a grant based thing, a logic model might make sense for that. Evaluation. So when we come back around to that first part of how are we doing, you know, where are we at in regard, like in relation to where we thought we would be, the evaluation process can help. uh, a logic model can help inform where you're at, you know. um, and during advocacy, because it can help map out a path forward, right? So you want to find, in creating a logic model, you want to find the logic in existing written materials to create your first draft. So uh, if there's like an orientation or something, right? Usually there's a workbook like with all our policies and procedures for you. So you want to like review those materials to create your first draft. You want to determine the appropriate scope of the model for its intended users and uses. So again, do we want to really hone in on this one little specific aspect, or do we want to kind of be more broad? Um, Consider creating like a family of models for multiple users. So this is the thing too, is like, who's the audience? Why are we creating this logic model? Is it for the community? Is it for internal folks? Is it for, you know, the marketing team specifically within our internal folks? Is it, you know, not the marketing team, but then like our volunteers, right? Uh, Check whether the model makes sense and is complete. So you got your inputs, the activities, the outputs, which relate directly to the activities, and then the relate directly to outcomes. And those always come back to and relate to the purpose and the context. Attend to the nuts and bolts of drawing the model. So I know we're in Canvas with our course, but if you use Canva is a good way to kind of create these. There are a bunch of free kind of logic model templates. I know in your reading there was one that has like 19 different ones, but Canva is a good one too if you like colors and fonts and things. Um, and then revisit, you want to revisit it constantly and be ready to revise it as necessary. Because, you know, the best planning doesn't always do what we intend it to do. Life happens, right? So effective logic models logically link activities and effects. They're usually visually engaging while still containing like just enough detail that is required for the purpose. So we want it to be simple and straightforward, but not so simple that it is super vague and confusing. Like we want the Goldilocks like equation or scenario here where it's like not too hot, not too cold, just right, you know? So not too much where it's like you know, like sometimes in presentations you see that there's just like paragraphs, like sentence, 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 and it's not broken up. It's just like paragraph, paragraph, paragraph. Like we don't want that. We don't want just vague one words like, I don't know, map or, like action or, I don't know why I'm just coming up with like verbs and stuff, but we want just enough to give the specificity that's needed without like overcomplicating or confusing folks. It's meant to provoke thought and to trigger questions, and it includes forces known to influence the desired outcome. So, like for example, that would be the inputs here. So, this is like a nonprofit logic model, an example. So, the inputs, we've got funding, we've got staff, we got volunteers, we've got our facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So our activities are workshops, training sessions, community events, other things. Through these activities, we have outputs. Those outputs can include like the direct results of activities. So for example, if we were doing a community event that was like also a workshop where we were doing like a community building exercise where it was a big art project where we invited families and members of the community to all come together, and we're going to paint this big mural on the side of the building here. And the result of that is community engagement, uh like relationship building, trust building, um artistic expression, and that kind of thing. We want these outputs to also be measurable and tangible. So another thing that you might consider is doing like a survey after like before or after the community engagement session, right? So that you can measure those outcomes specifically and demonstrate them to like grant holders, for example. Outcomes, so we want to talk timeframes, right? Short term, intermediate, so like between short and long term, and then long term. So short term is we get a sense of who all is in the community and who's showing up and participating and wants to engage in the type of work that we're doing. So we might be able to get some volunteers from that. Because like, hey, oh, do you like what we're doing here? That's awesome. Did you know you can participate if you want? You can help community members in this way. Intermediate is potentially this was a really big success. Let's do another one of these next season or next month or in the next 6 months to year. Or maybe we make this an annual thing. Um and then long term, so 5-year plan, 10-year plan for the project or the program, the organization. How does this impact the long term? It's like this is one of the bricks that we are laying to build the foundation of, our participation in supporting this community in XYZ terms, right? And then you've got your impact, which so this is kind of the context, right? The context, and then the purpose would be whatever, kind of your mission, right? Impact is long-term changes your nonprofit makes in the community. That's the context, because the context will change, right? As these events and activities happen, hopefully the context changes. We want this to be ever evolving, right? Um, we want it to be growing as we grow as an organization. So logic models have benefits and limitations. The benefits, it can integrate planning, implementation, and evaluation. Like I was talking through evaluation, I mean, heck, if you're putting surveys in with the activities, those inform your outcomes, right? They prevent mismatches as well. Mismatches between activities and effects. So again, you don't want the activity, if you're only working with kiddos, you don't want the activities effect to be supporting the parents, right? It's not like a direct effect, right? If you're just working with the kiddos and not working with the parents. It helps you leverage the power of partnerships. can enhance accountability by keeping stakeholders focused on outcomes, helps set priorities for allocating resources, reveals data needs, and provides a framework for interpreting results. It can enhance learning by integrating research findings and practice wisdom. So again, the model is growing and shifting and changing as we as an organization are growing and shifting and changing because the context changes, right? Our mission, the purpose doesn't change. The mission doesn't change necessarily. If we're doing a really like hyper focus, like zoomed very close in on one aspect of the mission, it might be, again, we've honed in on that one aspect of the mission, but it's not that the mission itself has changed, right? And it helps us define a shared language and shared vision for community change. So again, if we get stuck, we can always refer back, limitations. There's always a danger that your model will not be correct. This feels very similar to the AI discussion, the generative AI discussion before. Just like check your sources, make sure that you get feedback on the logic model as well. I mean, it could also be incomplete because knowing where the boundaries of the logic model, like what do we include, what do we exclude, it can be a difficult challenge because everything is interrelated, right? Again, we're social workers. We are in the gray. We are like all, it's like a spider web, right? Like we just keep finding more and more like kind of pieces of the web, and it all impacts everything. So if we're trying to hone in or like just focus on one part of the spider web, it's hard not to include the rest of it. And I don't know, for social workers, like we could get way into the weeds with context, but it's like, how do we simplify that and how do we sift through what is needed and what can be kind of let go of? Logic modeling can be time consuming and require lots of energy in the beginning. And it does also require maintenance. So continued attention throughout the life of an initiative. So like if you're including this as part of your project and your process, you want to make sure it's continuously updated, just like your policies and procedures. Like if that is the thing that people are referring back to, you want to make sure that it's up to date. I think I'm going to do this as a separate thing, the research tips. I'll record this separately just because I noticed that we're getting a little tight on time. So things I will give you right away though is like keywords are important when you're searching. Think creatively or outside of the box. There's always like if the person or community in front of you has a specific subset of populations or there are like specific identities involved, to me it's like the person in front of me in their exact set of circumstances with their identities, with everything that they've experienced, they are not the only person with those identities and similar experiences to have gone through what they're going through now. And so to me that means that somebody has been through it before and figured out what didn't work, has probably documented at least what did work in their situation. And there might be people who want to throw money at that community, at that problem, to support folks who have been historically marginalized, if it's a community or an individual. We're talking scholarships, we're talking grants, we're talking, special resources or programs, or like materials, tangible goods that might be accessible because somebody had gone through something similar and didn't want anybody else to have to go through what they went through, I mean, heck, you're talking healthcare stuff. That's kind of what I'm like finagling or what I'm trying to talk about here. And there's always 211 United Way. So if you encounter somebody who needs support or resources and just kind of doesn't know where to start, you can always refer them to 211. They can go to United Way, their city or county, wherever they live, as long as they know what to ask for. United Way has the most up-to-date information as to what organizations and resources are available, and what's still actively available. Yeah, so those are some high-level tips and tricks. My recommendations for success after school, things that you can be doing right now. Um, what I would do is I would create a folder. Each of my semesters, I would create a folder on my desktop, and I would just, what is it, spring 2026, and then I would create a folder for each of my classes and then a folder for each week in each class, and then download all the materials to that folder for that week. In Zotero, I would save my links. So if there was a YouTube video or anything like that, I would print my assignment pages and sometimes the discussion pages if I was doing discussion posts, just so I would have the prompts uh, and like what the assignment was listed as, um, in case I ever needed to refer back to them. And as you're saving the links to everything, make sure you're saving them as something that describes what it is so that you know when you go back to it, what you're looking for will come up. I was trying to find my Imagine framework PowerPoint and I can't find it because I didn't save it under that. And the course has changed somewhat, so I have no idea what it is now. I'm still looking for it to hopefully link to y'all. Um, Keep contact information of professors and peers that you connect with. You never know when you're going to need a letter of recommendation or, you know, if you encounter a question or something where you know somebody either had an internship somewhere specific or that kind of thing. Um, Even when you are asynchronous, try to reach out to your peers. Like just send an email like, hey, I noticed in your introduction you do this thing. That sounds cool. Where are you at? How is the semester going? Just because you're asynchronous does not mean that you can't reach out to your peers for support and that they're not going to be open to engaging in that type of support as well because they might need it too. Sign up for what you can and what sounds interesting. I can't tell you how many like free trainings they did and just like lunch meetings and those kinds of things when I was at MSU Denver. And NASW also has a bunch of trainings. CSWE has a bunch of trainings. Like a lot of them are free for students. Sign up for what you can and don't feel guilty if you can't go, but like, show up if you have the ability to. And you don't have to be the amazing A student participant. Just show up and see what's cool. See what the community is that shows up to that. Um, do vibe checks. There's always going to be time to do deep dives on interests that you find in the program later on, like after you graduate. So flag what excites you now so that you can revisit it after grad school, right? Like I'm still learning about internal family systems, IFS, because that came up in one of my classes. I think it was even fall. It was like my third semester out of four. So, there's plenty of time to learn all about the cool things on the other side of the program. Right now, set yourself up for success to get through the program, and do your best you can do now. Just know that there's going to be time and there's going to be opportunities for you to take trainings, for you to, like, as social workers, we are kind of mandated in order to keep our licensure to continuously learn. And so those are opportunities for you to do that. And it's going to take time. So be patient with yourself and be patient with your circumstances too. Okay. Your self-reflection for this week. So your activities, one of them is to create a logic model. What are your thoughts or concerns? Or what thoughts or concerns would you have about proposing your logic model change? So, you've got your idea. Who would be a few stakeholders? Huh. Um, what were the biggest challenges you faced in designing a logic model? How did you navigate conflicting priorities or approaches in your head, when you're imagining the landscape of who you're working with? Where are the obstacles that come up? In what ways did you incorporate community voice and cultural humility in your planning process? Did you? What might you have missed? Whew. My closing thoughts are take care of yourself. I'm doing the best I can too. Whew. But, the world is weird right now, and we'll do what we can um, for as long as we can do it, because that's all we have control over. Chop wood, carry water. Chop wood, carry water. All right. I'll see you in the next one.